Hey everybody! Welcome back to season 2 of Spooktober Cinema.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've been waiting a long time for this to come around. I enjoyed doing this a lot last year, so we're hoping to do 4, maybe a couple more episodes than that this season. But this time around, and it's nice and spooky in here.
It is. It is very atmospheric.
This time around, we start with the classic Nosferatu. This is from we saw the Kino International version,
Yep.
which means there's more scenes in it than there needed to be.
Yeah. The thing about Nosferatu is there's so many different versions out there. The film's in public domain. Some of them aren't complete, but because people don't have to pay licensing fees, they can just release whatever they got.
Yep.
The film has quite the history surrounding it. We're lucky that we even have this film anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be destroyed during wartime in Germany. It was decreed that all the copies of this would be found and destroyed. So we're very lucky that some people were smart enough to hide it away, and that we have it. We have it today. I mean, this film is super important, as it was really the first feature-long film, like a feature-length film, a horror film. Before that, you had a couple of shorts. You had the Frankenstein Edison short. You had a couple of other things as well, but this was the first one that was actually a full-length feature. And 1922, so it's silent, which some people go, oh, I can't do silent movies, they'll put me to sleep.
It's not, I mean...
Yeah.
There are a few moments where it's like, all right, come on, let's...
Yeah, and this version especially, because they added in a bunch of stuff that isn't normally in most versions that you see. This spawned, obviously, lots of people making films based upon it or whatever. It's Dracula. I mean, you can call it whatever you want to call it. It is based off of Bram Stoker's Dracula. They changed some things around to avoid copyright infringement and lawsuits from the Stoker estate.
Yeah, right. This one doesn't have Keanu Reeves in it, like the original novel had. Yeah.
It was remade in the 70s. Klaus Kinski played Max Schreck's character of Count Orlok.
I can't hear that name without thinking of Batman Returns.
Yeah, yeah. And then there was the mockumentary, not really a mockumentary, but dramatic documentary called Shadow of a Vampire, starring John Malkovich and Willem Dafoe, in which Malkovich played F.W. Murnau and Willem Dafoe played Max Schreck as if he were an actual vampire.
And it's a pretty good film,
It's a pretty good film. I recommend it.
But I guess maybe we should start talking about our thoughts on the movie, I guess. Yeah. We got the history out of the way. I liked it. I like it, but I also don't like it at the same time. It is the classic. It has some of the problems that the silent films have if you watch them in this day and age. Mm-hmm. It's there's a lot of scenes where it just feels like there's nothing going on, and you'd wonder why that was even left in there. Like, 'cause it starts off fairly strong, I think, even though confusing. Because I to this day, like, I still don't know how Knock, the guy who's selling Dracula this broken down warehouse, how he can even decipher whatever that fucking note was that Dracula left him.
It's like hieroglyphics. It looked like there was like a picture of a pig, like there was like a bingo card or something with numbers inside of squares.
It made those, and then like he flips over the one side. I'm like, he literally drew a house.
Yeah,
it's like, that's what I want. I want one of those. You got any of those? And just out of that, it's just like, okay, he wants to buy a house here. I need you to travel all the way across the world to go talk to this guy to get him to sign this paper. When there is mailmen, apparently, in this time period.
Yeah, well, messengers, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. It's really, really weird. So you're supposed to, I guess, Nock is already under the spell of Count Orlok, which,
So from the beginning,
like, it's weird. Like, is there some sort of, like, past between the two that we're just not aware of? I have no idea. It's not explained at all. But basically, this is to set up the reason why the hero, and I put that in quotes, character Hutter, is sent out towards the... It's not Transylvania. It's some... I don't even remember what they called it. Like, because they live in Wiesborg, I think, and they're they're sending him who knows where, and you know they went really far out of their way not to make it Dracula, and so they send him to go get the paper sign, like you said, just like Jonathan Harker in Dracula. And, you know, basically you have the scenes of him traveling, and he goes to the inn, and he mentions he's going to the castle, and everybody freaks out. And it's...
Yeah, I love... Everybody had great mustaches in this movie, too. Because, like, the barkeep guy just walks over, he's like, go to bed. It's like everybody's freaked out. He's just like, what's going on? Why?
Yeah.
Go to sleep. It's like, what?
Yeah, so, I mean, at this point, Hutter has left his wife, Ellen, behind with his friend, who's a ship's captain, who we never see captaining at all.
And that's very important that you know that that's his occupation.
And, like, one of the things that really confused me is a lot of the intertitles are done as if somebody wrote this like a book.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was the captain that was writing this, but now I'm not so sure, because at the end, I
don't know who was writing this.
I don't know, because they introduce him and his wife, because they're taking care of Ellen while Hutter's away, because she's a grown woman and can't take care of herself.
Right.
And so Hutter goes away, and she goes to live with them. It's just really a bizarre situation. Yeah. I didn't understand that at all.
Like, I trust you, Captain.
Yeah.
Don't diddle my wife. Bye. And, like, he keeps constantly referring to it as the land of thieves and phantoms. Yeah. And he's just smiling away. He's just like, oh, I'm happy. I'm going to die.
Yeah, it's like he's basically...
He's the only person that wasn't afraid of it.
Yeah.
He tells his wife, she's just, like, mortified. He's like, bye.
I mean, maybe he just doesn't believe it, or maybe he's just super naive, and maybe that's what we're supposed to think is just this happy-go-lucky guy who's just so naive that, like, you know, he's talked about going into this evil land.
Well, there's
or
a
whatever,
point between being
like,
naive. There's a point between, like, being naive and being retarded.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's taking a coach towards the castle, and as they get to in Dracula, it was Borgo Pass, and here it's just the pass. And the coachman that's taking him there,
tiny little bridge,
are basically like, nope, you can pay us whatever you want to pay us. We're leaving you here.
Yeah,
we're not going.
I love that line too. It's like, you can give me any amount of money you please, but I'm not doing it.
We're not going any further.
I wish it would work that way in real life.
So Otter like puts up like a small argument, and then he's just basically like, fine, whatever, okay, I guess you know what's best. And he like grabs his knapsack and he starts walking.
Yeah.
So then we have the scene where Count Orlok, or should I say not Count Orlok, shows up in a coach.
Yes, Benny Hill style.
And just takes off flying, like Fast and the Furious Tokyo drifting around the trees and stuff. And I'm like, I absolutely love the use of sped up photography that they use in this film.
Freaking great.
Because at the time, people were like, you know, they believed everything they saw on the screen. So they're like, this is real.
Yeah.
This is really happening. This guy has like mystical powers that like he can drive this coach like 1,000 miles an hour through the wilderness. So he takes him to the castle, and basically just a lot of awkward scenes of Orlok reading paperwork and staring at Hutter, and
so Hutter's like, I'd like a nice slice of bread. So he just picks up this giant sharp knife, as you would, and just starts cutting bread towards himself, cradling it like a baby.
Yeah.
And it just nicks his thumb. And then, you know, in the most normal fashion, as you would, Count Orlok just gets up and he's like, sticks his thumb in his mouth.
You know, I can't help but compare this film to Dracula, like the 1931 Dracula, because you have a very similar scene. You have Renfield sitting at the dinner table, Lugosi's Dracula's sitting there. He cuts his finger. You know, Lugosi's kind of like, oh, you know, that looks pretty good. And then he like leans in, and then the crucifix falls down.
Yeah, and he backs away.
He backs away, and you know that's kind of cool. This is just like basically.
He just straight up puts a man's thumb in his mouth.
It just made me think of like Opie from Family Guy.
Yeah.
Like, he wants you to put his finger in your mouth. He is your boss. If you value your job, you will do this.
Oh, he bit me. Oh God, come on, guy.
It's just then. So like Hutter's like, okay, this is weird, and he starts backing away, and like Orlok just keeps coming towards him like,
Yeah, he just
don't
like,
go, stay with me, let's talk.
yeah, he's like, stay here with me forever. Just you and I. He like enchants him into sleeping on like a cast iron chair.
Yeah, he's basically like, stay up with me. I don't sleep at night. I sleep during the day, so you should stay up with me. Like, it's really weird. It's like, hey, let's have like a slumber party where we don't sleep. We do an all-nighter.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
We're gonna stay up. We're gonna stay up. We're gonna talk about women in the morning. I'm making waffles.
Yeah, that is legitimately.
Except he's going to bed in the morning.
Yeah.
He's a lying sack of shit.
Yeah, so Hutter wakes up in what appears to be a cast iron chair, in which Matt goes, God, his back's gonna be killing him.
Because he's just like, he's in the chair like this when he wakes up. Like, he's just like, his back's arched, like hanging over. And you can tell it's just like a completely like metal chair. And it's got like this crazy scrolling and shit everywhere. I'm like, it's like, I know I wake up out of a comfy, soft bed. And I'm just like, oh God, my ribs.
So
yeah.
Hutter wakes up. Orlok's nowhere to be found. Hutter looks at a hallway. Another one of those scenes where I don't know if we were supposed to get something out of that or not. And then he like goes to his room. Like I really.
It's weird.
It's weird, and I guess it's supposed to be like dreamlike state kind of thing, like he's under his control or whatever. But it's just really weird.
Yeah. So then, if you fast forward a little bit, because between then and when it starts getting interesting, not a whole lot really happens. Like, you start seeing his wife, Ellen, is starting to succumb to Dracula's Wi-Fi. And,
yeah, because he saw her picture. And
yeah, he saw her
Hutter's
picture, and he's just like, oh, what a lovely neck.
Yeah, which, okay.
So, then we have Dracula buys the house, and now he's got to make his way there.
Yeah.
So, to do so, he fills 6 coffins with dirt, and 1 including himself. And we get a scene of him doing that. Hutter is like looking out a window at the castle, and there's just like, he's got the carriage down below, and he's just hucking coffins full of dirt, like like it's nothing onto the back of this thing.
Yeah.
The last one's his. He puts on top of the coffin. He puts on top of all the other coffins. He just appears in it. The lid just floats up and lands, and they take off Tokyo Drifting style again.
Which has got to be one of the earliest versions of stop motion.
Yeah.
Like it
was a cool idea.
It's not badly done. Like,
No.
it still looks good for all these years later.
But yeah, that happens. Hutter just freaks out. He's like, I gotta get going, because he's going to basically go after my wife. He ties a bed sheet together to get out of the window, which I don't understand, because he ran to the room and locked him.
Oh yeah, after he found Orlok in the casket, and he threw the lid off for some reason, and then like shimmied up the stairs sideways real awkwardly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, he put himself in that room so he can get out of it, but he decides, why not just fall out a window, I guess.
Yeah.
So he falls out a window and he gets a fever.
Yeah, like some farmers find him and take him to a hospital, and like they're like, yeah, he has a fever, and I'm like, how do you get a fever from falling out of a window?
I mean,
unless
it was cold that night, or
because the way this film goes the whole way, they're kind of alluding to the fact that Nosferatu or Orlok is the plague itself. So when he feeds on you, you get the plague. So maybe because he fed on Hutter had the effects of the plague, but he didn't succumb to the plague because they got him in time.
Why, he's a lucky bastard.
Like, there's so many things you can read into it. Obviously, we can't go ask Bernal.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's left open to interpretation.
I mean, there's so many different theories on this, and people claim to know the truth, but I don't think we ever really will know the truth on this because, like I said, we can't go ask more now.
So Dracula hitches a ride on a ship. They load his coffins in there, and surprise, surprise, he starts feeding off the semen one by one, and it ends up being down to and this whole time he's feeding off of this, you get scenes of just like shots of the ship, just sailing,
just a lot of shots
and then
of the ship,
crossed with Hutter like abusing the fuck out of his horse to get to like home. And then I said to Will while we're watching it, I'm like, well, if Dracula had to take a boat across the ocean to get there, how the fuck is Hutter getting home? Because that would lead me to believe that they were on like another continent. Like
the only thing I could think of would be like they're crossing like one of the seas in Europe, and Hutter's going around.
There is no way he would beat him home.
Well, if he's killing off all the crew, maybe. I mean, like, I don't think that Orlok really like knows how to captain a ship.
Apparently he does.
I mean, he kind of just drifted into port, to be honest.
He got fucking lucky.
He got very lucky. And you can say what all you want, he has mystical powers. That doesn't mean that he can sail a big ship by himself. A two-masted schooner, which they made sure they said in the intertitles. But like one of my favorite scenes though of when he's taking over the ship is when he finally emerges and they finally see him.
Oh, when he comes
he comes right out of the coffin, and the first mate just jumps overboard, and the captain's just like attaching himself to the wheel, and he just comes up and he just kind of walks in front of you're looking from like below deck up. That scene is probably one of my, that's like an image that's like burned in my mind of this film, is the scene of him going across in front of, like, you could see the masts in the background. And they definitely did that in the 1979 version of this too. They reenacted that scene. But yeah, and then okay, so he gets there.
Yeah.
And they have the scene where he's coming up from below again. So it has the sheet goes back and the door opens up to the cabin, and he just kind of peeks out are we here? So how did the ship get there? Why would it just be adrift somewhere? I get it.
How did it get there, and why did he cover the hatchback up with a sheet?
So he had to use his powers to cover that back up with the canvas.
That's just like an abuse of your powers. So he's here now.
But Hutter shows up too, so they get there about the same time.
They get there about the same time. Hutter on a horse going around the sea, and him cutting straight through it on a ship. They get there at the same time. Hutter makes it home. He sees Alan and everything. Meanwhile, Nosferatu's just casketed under one arm, just running around the streets of this town looking for his new house.
Yeah.
it's so awkward looking.
Yeah.
And he's just full on sprinting at times. He's just got this. He's just
yeah.
And he finds his place and he just vanishes into it, which is just literally a broken down, decrepit warehouse.
But
that he paid money for.
Here's where the continuity gets me in here, because so he has this casket he's carrying, and he just missed himself into this building. But earlier, when he came into Hutter's bedroom, he still had to open the door. He didn't just appear in the bedroom. He still had to open the door.
Dracula's powers changed drastically.
It really depends on, I guess, where he is.
How he's feeling.
Yeah, if he's up to par or not. I guess after he ate all those guys on the ship, I guess he had enough power to turn into mist. I don't know. But meanwhile, while this is all going on, Knock, the real estate guy that sent Hutter basically to his death.
He's full on Looney Tunes.
He's gone completely batshit, and he's in an asylum just simply because the quote unquote the master is coming, and so he's just gone completely insane.
He's just in there going nuts, eating spiders and flies.
Yeah,
and then the town decides, hey, people are dying. We need a sacrifice. Why not that crazy batshit
Yeah.
asshole? So they go to they want to sacrifice him. He escapes. He just runs around sitting on top of roofs throwing shit down at people. That's what Will and I suspect. It's not.
Yeah.
They never said it was shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
what
would-
else could it have been?
I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, he's got nothing else to throw.
I mean, he could be throwing shingles and maybe rocks, but
Nah,
nah.
shit.
I think he's just reaching back and just grabbing
Just
fistfuls.
grabbing a nice old mud puppy and just
Yeah.
tossing it down. So he kind of gets away. Like, they allude that he gets away, but in the next scene, it's like the police officers walking in. It's like, they caught him. And I'm like, okay, then what?
Yeah,
So
they just
that-
put him back in the...
Yeah, they catch him and put him right back into the cell that he broke out from.
Mhm.
So, but you never see him get sacrificed.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like, that's a loose end that never really gets tied up.
Well, I think the doctor and his guards got to him before the townspeople did.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. It's kind of open-ended. But, you know, you have this all going on, and earlier in the film, you kind of get half introduced, like you just switch the scenes to this professor or doctor who's
Yeah.
like teaching these students about like the Venus flytrap and basically saying it's a vampire, and like you're wondering like how does this guy play into any of this?
Yeah.
So later, like Hutter, after he gets home and finds out, okay, Dracula's fucking across the street from me, I better go talk to this doctor and say like, hey man.
So he's fucking across the street?
Yeah, he's over just banging away.
He's in his giant sex warehouse.
There's plenty of room.
He's specifically asked for it to be empty.
Yeah, he did. He did. Deserted and empty. So, meanwhile, this book that Hutter somehow got, they never really explain where he got it
It's
from.
the world's tiniest book on a guide to the person he went to go see.
It looks like a children's book.
Yeah.
Like those little tiny, like, thick books that, like, they give little kids to chew on.
Well, you know
And-
how we have smartphones now? Maybe
Yeah.
tiny books was the thing
Tiny
back
books.
then.
And it's all about vampires. And I'm like, who wrote this? Did the professor guy write this? Like, none
See,
of
that's
this
why
is explained.
I sometimes think maybe the person that's narrating the movie wrote the book.
Right.
Because at times the narrator of the movie's like, I suspect that... And that's why the narrator of the movie's like, that's why he needed to take dirt with him, because he needs dirt from his own
Yeah.
place to use his powers. And I'm like, well, who the fuck are you talking right
Yeah,
now?
it's very much from, like, a person's perspective. It's not like a narrator who's just basically just narrating. He's basically, like, explaining or telling a story
Yeah.
from his perspective. Like, I assume that he brought all this dirt because he needs the cursed earth from his birthplace to live in a new land.
Yeah.
And you know, that is something that is from the lore, and, you know, that does make sense. But, like, who's writing this? Is it the captain? Is it the doctor? Who the hell wrote this thing?
I mean, the captains are the only people we see doing any writing,
Yeah. Yeah.
besides Nosferatu himself, but that's not legible.
No, that's just drawings.
It's just-
little cartoon drawings of a pig.
That's only a little step up from children's chicken scratch. Like, and I did like that scene, and it's going back a little bit, where like he's showing Nosferatu the papers, like to sign the house, and he's just looking at him like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
you need to help me out here, Hunter.
So now we're nearing the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen goes to her window, and Nosferatu is standing there, perving the shit out of her from across the way. She grabs her tit twice, which I know her heart. She's just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so scared.
Yeah.
But she like literally cops a full-on feel of her boob,
Mhm.
and then you see Nosferatu's shadow travels across the street into the house, and just like he grabs onto her heart.
Yeah.
And
You have the classic scene of him going up the stairs where you just see his shadow.
yeah.
That's
I mean, that shot where he's like the shadow's going from the hallway into the room, and you just see his fingers get longer and longer. I was like, that is a cool fucking shot.
yeah, they did. There's a lot of times in this film where it feels very dated, and then there's times where I'm like, that still holds up.
Yeah.
It does.
Like the shot from through the window where they're all carrying the coffins down the main street. Like, that's a cool shot.
Yeah, yeah.
We both
absolutely.
even said that. We're like, that's an awesome shot. So, I mean, there are a lot of good merits to this film, and it will always be a classic, but there are some... there are some stuff where it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. Too many, like,
Too many stock stuff and
stuff
yeah.
of, like, boats and, like, yeah. It's really weird, but But Ellen had been reading Hutter's book.
Yeah, she found it.
And it's saying about how, like, one way to vanquish the Death Bird, they keep referring to him as the Death Bird, which I found weird, was that, to lure him and then, keep him there until dawn, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what she does. Hutter's gone. He's out trying to get the doctor, and she's there.
It took him like a whole day to find a doctor.
She's there taking care of business.
Yeah. Well, so I said to you in the beginning, I was like, oh, the year that this film was made, when men were women and women were men.
Yeah. Honest to God, yeah. Like, yeah, she basically... some people say that she lures him there because she goes to the window and lures him there.
Yeah.
Some people say that, she just took advantage of the fact that he showed up. But basically, he's there feeding on her all night.
Yeah.
And, the rooster crows and, the dawn comes and Nosferatu, or Orlok, I keep calling him Nosferatu, but it's not really his name. He goes to leave, he's like, oh shit, I left the oven on, and, he goes to leave, and then does this weird pirouette turn, it goes like this, and then just, poof, turns into smoke, which is a pretty cool effect for 1922.
I mean, what else would it...
They do, this white
If they wanted to set
effect.
something on fire, they would really have to set a person on fire.
Yeah, they did this, really interesting wipe effect, which was actually not bad, and then there's, smoke coming off the floor, and then Hutter and the doctor arrive, too late.
Yeah.
But she basically dies in Hutter's arms. And Knox just sitting in his cell going, uh-oh, now what do I do?
Yeah. He was like the weirdest character too.
Yeah, Knock is essentially the Renfield character.
Yeah. But did we do ratings last year? No, I don't think we did.
No.
Nah, we don't need to.
No.
It's a classic. Any of these movies we're going to talk about, you should go watch.
It is. It's a good movie. It's an important movie. It's a movie that for years for me, when I first got into horror movies, it was this mysterious movie that I never seen. It was never on TV. We didn't have the internet back then, so
yeah.
It was never on TV. You would see pictures of it in books. They would show it occasionally, and they would do shows about old horror movies and be like, what is this movie? And I remember my dad had a friend that he worked with that liked old horror movies too, and he said that one time he saw it, somebody had a reel-to-reel version of it, and they watched it, and it was this underground film, nobody saw it, which is weird because it was public domain, so you figured video companies should have been pumping these out. But
yeah.
I don't remember seeing any VHSs of this growing up.
Yeah.
In fact, I never saw a copy of it anywhere until I was probably in my late teens, and I saw a copy of it at a Hollywood Video, which I rented it, and that's how I saw it for the first time, the whole way through. And like I said, I've seen several versions of it since, and this was this version, which I know they have a Blu-ray version of this as well, I think Kino put out, is the clearest picture of them all.
Yeah, it's a really good transfer.
Some of them, on those 50 movies for $10 packs, yeah, it's cool, you get to see the movie and stuff, but it's real grainy. There's stuff missing, which sometimes is okay.
Yeah.
But there is stuff missing, and then this is a really cool version of it. And this DVD has a ton of special features on it. You can watch it with the German titles. You can watch it with the regular titles. There's a hour-long documentary about it. There's the restoration process and everything. Because this, much like another silent film classic, Metropolis by Fritz Lang, up until just a few years ago, they were still finding pieces of the film that they didn't have yet. They find a copy in Prague somewhere, and it had a scene that they didn't know existed, and they would put it together, and that's how they keep doing these. They keep adding more to them, which is crazy to think that there's still stuff in these movies that are nearly 100 years old that we're still finding scenes that weren't in the versions that we had.
That's pretty crazy. But yeah, definitely, if you guys are looking for a classic movie to watch this Halloween, definitely pick up Nosferatu. It's a really good one. And I also recommend the movie that we're going to review next week. I had to do this one. Yeah. I wanted to do this one last year, and I didn't have the fucking film, and now I spent the whopping $6 to purchase it. We're going to review Transylvania 65000 next week.
Yep.
So you can tell Will goes for serious stuff. I go with stupid shit that nobody wants to watch. But yeah, so that'll be next week is Transylvania 6 5000. So until then, guys, if you like this, please tell us about it. Tell us what you thought about this down in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel and give us a like. So we'll see you next week. Bye.